Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Julia Chatterley, anchor for CNN. I am delighted to be in conversation this afternoon with the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, President Tokayev. Sir, thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Julia.
And I'm going to get going because we don't have too much time, and I know your agenda is full, sir. I watched you speak at the United Nations over a year ago, and you were talking about the need for greater cohesion, unity, some path to peace wherever we were in the world. And I fast forward to today, and I fear that there's greater conflict, greater concern, not just with the wars we face, but also with technology shifts, concerns over climate change and energy security. How do you view the world today, and how worried are you?
The contemporary world is in the process of shifting, as you said, in the process of great changes. And I was talking to the audience in the United Nations, bearing in mind that this universal organization is absolutely needed for the humankind, because we have no other organizations in the world. And the major powers, unfortunately, failed to make sure that the global world will be peaceful, stable. And what we are seeing now, of course, is a matter of great concern for so many countries, including Kazakhstan. And that's why we believe that, first of all, the United Nations must be changed. We need reforms in this organization. Although it is very much indispensable. And secondly, we believe that there must be bridges between major powers that unfortunately brought the Security Council of the United Nations in the deadlock, and those who represent the so-called second world, middle powers like Kazakhstan. I think that, and I'm absolutely confident that Kazakhstan as a middle power can play a very important role in promoting peace and security on the regional level as well as in the global space.
I'll come back to your point about how you evolved the United Nations, I think, to work better for its citizens, rather than perhaps being politicized and weaponized. But I want to talk about your point about Kazakhstan itself, because your largest two trading partners are China and Russia. You obviously have investment and interest from the United States and Europe. You have to balance the powers of the West, the powers of the East, the North and the South. How do you find that balance, and what is that bridging power at this moment?
It's our credo to be, first of all, just in the center of Eurasia and to serve as a hub, either a transit hub or a logistic hub or a trade hub, investment hub on this vast continent. We are immediate neighbors with Russia, with China. At the same time, we have excellent relationship with the United States, and a couple of days ago, just before leaving for Qatar, I had a telephone talk with President-elect Trump.
I was going to ask you about that. How did that go?
Yes, it was a very good exchange of views, and we agreed that both countries will be continuously committed to having close relationship, first of all, in investment, economic area, nuclear non-proliferation, as well as other areas. So, and the United States, by the way, is a major investor in our economy. The total volume of investments that came to Kazakhstan is equal to $50 billion. And major American companies successfully operate on our markets. That's why I believe that we will be continuously pursuing this policy of balancing, first of all, secondly, of attracting foreign investments, and serving as a peaceful hub in our part of the world, first of all in Central Asia, and beyond.
Can I ask if you talked about the prospect of peace? And we'll talk about closer to home. I know you've also welcomed President Putin in the last few days. We've also heard from President Zelensky in recent days too, talking about the prospect perhaps of giving up land for a NATO umbrella. Are you more optimistic about the prospect for some kind of peaceful resolution there than perhaps you were, if we look out over the next 6 to 12 months? What does a realistic solution look like?
To be frank and pragmatic, we should acknowledge that the whole situation, the whole thing is going to be extremely difficult. And we should judge the whole perspective of the situation in Ukraine, bearing in mind what happened on the ground. And Russia has gotten an upper hand on the military front, and there will be no setbacks. We should be realistic on this particular issue. So all diplomatic consultations will be difficult because this is an issue of territories, the most sensitive problem, not only between Ukraine and Russia, but within so many countries or between so many countries. So I believe that it will take some time, and there should be a very creative approach to possible solution of the Ukrainian crisis. And I told President-elect Mr. Trump that what we have already read in the press with regard to his particular suggestions and ideas.
I mean, he said he could fix it in 24 hours, I believe.
Ideas sounds quite promising.
Okay.
Sounds quite promising, and I believe that President Trump, being a very smart man and a very much creative person, will be able to do something practical and positive with regard to solving this issue. It's a huge problem, and Kazakhstan, as I have already said, is an immediate neighbor of Russia, and we feel some negative effects of what is happening in Ukraine.
So just to be very clear, you are more optimistic perhaps than you were, that perhaps something will shift, as difficult as it is. Yes?
Yes, I'm optimistic, but at the same time I'm a realist, and I believe that it will take time. All parties concerned should express their willingness to get engaged quite seriously, trying to solve this, to tackle this problem.
Can I ask if you also spoke about the Middle East too, and the challenges that we see there, another very difficult problem. Do you think there's perhaps opportunities again in the next 12 months for the president-elect perhaps to do something there?
I'm sure that the whole situation in the Middle East will be getting better. And I believe that there should be a process of reconciliation, if I may say so, bearing in mind what happened before. But there is no other way. And I think that there should be a very balanced approach to both conflicting sides. And principally, of course, we believe that the Palestinians should have the right to set up their own state, but it will also take some time. We should be realistic, and but nevertheless, the process has already begun in the Middle East, and I'm rather more optimistic about the Middle East than about Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly going to be a key focus over the next couple of days in particular. The other thing that he's threatened, and this is vital for a nation such as yourself as an energy exporter, but also as a large open nation that's very reliant on trade, is tariffs as a negotiating tool. How worried are you about the prospect of not only tariffs coming from the United States, but perhaps counter tariffs from other nations and an economic slowdown, plus more tensions with China? your
From my
top trade
perspective,
partner?
the tariffs war or conflict is not a good decision. It's a very bad policy. Kazakhstan is a member of the WTO, and we strictly follow all norms and rules that do exist within this organization. And we believe that there should be no such kind of obstacles or conflicts. But nevertheless, as to Kazakhstan, of course, we will not be involved or engaged in this kind of conflicts because we have excellent relationship with our immediate neighbors, not only in the east or in the north, but in the south with our Central Asian neighbors. So I believe that this kind of problem will not come up in our part of the world. But at the same time, we would call all big majors concerned not to use this kind of instruments or ways of putting pressure.
So your message to the president-elect, just to be clear, is please don't use tariffs.
Yes, yes, because we are very much interested in being engaged or in participating the world trade. The trade volume of Kazakhstan is growing. It is the largest one in our part of the world, and our economy is the largest one in our part of the world. Now we want our economy to make stronger, to make it more vibrant, but still it's a fact that we are the strongest in our part of the world. We are not complacent, of course, and we want to have external trade growing without any imposed, artificially imposed tariffs.
Can you be too reliant on one of these big nations, whether it's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's Europe or the United States? When do you get the balance wrong to the point where you're open to persuasion or influence that ultimately is painful? Because you are in a delicate situation.
Yes, it's a delicate problem, but we believe that we have a mutually beneficial trade with all countries you have just mentioned. The largest trade partner of Kazakhstan is still the European Union as a whole. Then we have China. The trade volume with China reached $41 billion last year, and it's going to grow, to increase. We believe that in 5 years we'll be able to double the trade volume with China. And then Russia, we have $27 billion of mutual trade.
When I was researching Kazakhstan, one of the things that leapt out to me was the fact that you have more than half your population under 29 years old. And that's a huge opportunity. It's also a challenge for providing hope, I think. Hope of being able to provide for your families, to grow better wealth, to do the things in life that you want to do. What are the best policies for Kazakhstan today in your mind that provide hope in a very challenged world?
Yes, it's the right word, hope.
Yeah.
The younger generation, the youth, is my hope. And whenever I address the public opinion or big audiences, I always keep saying that it is my hope, the younger generation. And I'm trying to do everything to give them proper education. We encourage them to go abroad, to get good education, wherever, whether it is the United States, UK, or China, wherever. And at the same time, we improve the educational system in Kazakhstan, inviting best universities from abroad. Yes, and our young people are very much creative, and it is our peculiarity. And I think that, and the birth fertility is quite promising, 2.8. So the population of Kazakhstan will be growing. Nowadays we have more than 20 million people. It's not that many, taking into account the our territory, which is the 9th largest territory in the world. So we believe that our population will be growing, will be increasing, but at the same time, we need to work on the so-called quality of our people, and first of all, the younger generation.
I like the idea of asking your people to go abroad, to see the world and understand it better personally, if they can possibly do it. Mr. President, I have about 10 more questions for you, but we're out of time, and I'm very conscious of timekeeping, so you'll have to do an interview with me on television, please, and we'll continue the conversation. But for now, the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.